Hey, DawgNation, I'm Brandon Adams, and this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Happy Monday to all of you, especially for the folks in our audience who are teachers, or if you're a student, if you're enjoying a little spring break around the state of Georgia. We hope it's a great week for you, and we appreciate you sharing some of that with us here on DawgNation Daily today. I have a lot to tell you about before our official broadcast begins in just a moment. First of all, some great news. Many of you who are Georgia fans are also big-time Atlanta Braves fans. Y'all know I'm a huge Braves fan, and today's a really special day in the city of Atlanta where I live. It is the home opener for the Braves this afternoon. Cannot wait, or this evening, I should say. Cannot wait to see the Braves back in action at SunTrust Park. And as a way of celebrating that on today's show, we've got some Braves tickets to give away. That's right. One of you listening, viewing, someone who joins our audience today on DawgNation Daily, actually a couple of you, are going to walk away as a winner of some Braves tickets today. Coming up on the program, I will tell you more about that. That is going to be an awesome thing. I'll also tell you this. Normally it's Chip Towers on a Monday here on DawgNation Daily. Chip away for the next couple of days, so we'll bring in a couple special guests to step in for his place. I'm really excited to welcome back the former Georgia running back, one of the all-time greats to tote the rock for the Georgia Bulldogs, Tim Worley, who's also a very outspoken guy. Worley back on the program today, and we'll kind of get an outside perspective on DawgNation and what's going on with UGA a little bit later on in today's program, too. So we're also going to kind of shake up the format a bit. You never know what's going to be going on here on DawgNation Daily. Our R.S. Andrews cool down, the comment section portion of the program, that's going to be a little earlier today. We're going to kind of play around with that a bit. It's going to be a really, really fun show, though, and you've got a chance to win. So stick with us as DawgNation Daily begins right now.
Presented by DawgNation.com, this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
So much to talk about. I thought that Saturday was a really interesting day at Athens. Had a chance to be a part of the beautiful weather, get a chance to see a little bit of practice on Saturday, hear from some Georgia players. Immediately after that practice was done, we'll do a lot of that over the course of today and throughout the week here on DawgNation Daily. But if you don't mind, I want to start with a recruiting nugget that I thought was very, very juicy. Now, the caveat on all of this stuff for me is, who knows what any of this means? We don't really know what this kind of stuff means, but it is certainly really, really interesting. And I want to begin the show by talking about that right now. Let me also add this in here as well. For those of you joining us on podcast, radio, video, everything else, coming up a little bit later on, I'm going to tell you how you can win some Braves tickets as the Atlanta Braves celebrate the home opener here on Monday and a big opening week's worth of festivities at SunTrust Park. DawgNation Daily excited about celebrating that, and we'll do our part by giving away some Braves tickets a little bit later on the show. So hope you will join us for that coming up in just a couple of minutes. But speaking of fun and giveaways and prizes, Georgia looking to hopefully collect some prizes for its 2020 class. And one of the names that's on that list that a lot of Georgia fans are really interested in, especially someone like me that's hoped that Georgia can be more dynamic at the wide receiver position, add more playmakers to that group. Boy, one of the names we've thought about and paid a lot of attention to is Jermaine Burton, the four-star wide receiver, who our DawgNation recruiting insider Jeff Sintel has said, don't be surprised before it's all said and done if Burton's not a five-star receiver when this recruiting cycle ends. But this is one of those big-time playmakers that the Georgia fans would love to see added to this class. We don't yet know what he's going to do. As I've said before, a lot of times when it comes to this kind of stuff, you'll look at the clues, you'll look at the evidence, you'll say, I'm not sure what it means, but it adds up right now as more good than bad. Certainly there's an example of that when it comes to Jermaine Burton, because here is the tweet that he has dropped over the last couple of days that got my attention. Likely, if you've already seen it, it got yours, and if you're just now learning about this, well, this is maybe a reason to get excited. Jermaine Burton says, I will be committing on 4/20/19 on Terrence Edwards, a former Georgia wide receiver who we've had on the show and been a big friend with around DawgNation for quite some time. It's Terrence Edwards' birthday. He has been a huge influence on me. He's helped mold me into the player I am today. Stay tuned. You better believe that we will be staying tuned for that. Burton's a guy who we've been leaning in, waiting to hear some news about when he might commit for a long time. Now we find out it's going to be on April 20th, and we find out, in addition to the fact that it's also G-Day, in addition to the fact that Burton is ready to make his commitment announcement, he says, I'm going to do it in honor of the guy that's been the biggest influence on me in my football career up to this point. I'm going to do this in honor of Terrence Edwards on his birthday. Now, y'all know, listen, I'm a very simple person when it all comes down to it. I am not that complicated. When a receiver I want says I'm going to commit on the birthday of the receiver that's been influential to me as a personal coach, it's one of our good friends around here, Terrence Edwards. This adds up to being quite a very intriguing storyline. Now, listen, there are twists and turns in recruiting all the time. And a lot of times you go to one of these commitment announcements thinking it's going to be one thing, it ends up being something else. A lot of times one of these, sets of dominoes starts its way to fall, and by the time you get to the end, it ends up not being what you, in my case, hoped it would be, or in some analyst's case, thought it might be. So there's no given here that what Burton says is definitely going to be good news when it comes to Georgia. But I got to tell you, I like the fact that Burton's going to honor Terrence Edwards with his commitment. And we know from the other side of this relationship, Edwards having worked with Burton as a personal coach, we know how influential that Edwards has been because of some of the things that he's kind of told us in the past. And we know the impression that Burton has made on Edwards in the ways that he has worked with Terrence as a wide receivers coach. In fact, when Terrence has been right here in this studio where we do DawgNation Daily from every single day, talking about recruits and talking about wide receivers in particular, he has thrown a lot of praise in the direction of Jermaine Burton. In fact, here is something that Edwards recently told Jeff Sintel as a part of a video series with Inside Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. We call it Real Talk. It's former players breaking down film. Edwards was breaking down Jermaine Burton's film, and Edwards made two things really clear. He knows Burton well, and he really, really likes his game. Here's what Terrence said.
We got to give a little history on this right here. I have been training Jermaine Burton since he was in the 7th grade, so I know this player very intimately. The first time I trained him, I told his mom, you have something special. And he was a raw receiver that could catch and knew nothing about playing position, but his ball skills, hand-eye coordination is probably the best I've seen in a long time, and that including Jaden, that including Dominique Blaylock.
I mean, that's pretty good recruiting company to put a guy like that in, saying what you see from Jermaine Burton from an athletic standpoint, it reminds me of Dominique Blaylock, one of the centerpiece members of Georgia's 2019 class. It reminds me of a guy like Jaden Hazelwood, who, let's face it, we did talk a lot about this last recruiting cycle. If you're looking for a receiver like that, Terrence Edwards says, look no further than Jermaine Burton. He is absolutely in that category, which when a guy like Edwards, who's the only 1,000-yard single-season receiver in UGA history, when he throws that kind of compliment around here, we are going to pay attention. We are going to listen to that. Now, there's also, in stories like this, for some of our audience, they need to kind of play catch-up quickly on just who this guy is, meaning Jermaine Burton, and exactly what all the fuss is about. And it kind of gives me an excuse, at least for those folks watching on video, to go back and play one of the pieces of video that has been most fun for me over the last few months around DawgNation. Do you remember not too long ago when Burton showed off on his Instagram feed himself, and if you're watching, you see this, leaping all the way across a swimming pool out in California where he lives now, swimming pool weather pretty much year-round there. Burton showing off incredible athleticism leaping over the swimming pool. Now, I've joked before that I'm kind of a dad, and when I see, young kids doing this, especially guys I'd love to see healthy and playing for Georgia next season, there's a part of me that says, young man, are you sure you really want to be doing that? For those of you who've seen the video, it looks incredibly dangerous, and yet Burton kind of clears the pool with ease. He gets that done. I had a chance to recently talk to Terrence Edwards about this myself, and Edwards, a little bit like me, was like, young man, what's going on here? But in the description of why Burton does this, you do hear a little more about what to like about Burton. I think this is really insightful. Terrence Edwards' own conversation with Burton about that swimming pool leap you just saw if you're watching on video. This is more insight into what makes Burton the special player that he is. Here's Terrence once again.
When that video went out, I texted him. I like, JB, what are you doing? And only you would try it. He say, I tried it because I knew I could do it. I was in a group text with his mom and I was like, why? She was like, true. Like, why would you try it? It's like, because I knew I could do it. So this guy's extremely confident in his ability. He's a guy that has the ability to go up and get the ball. Straight line speed is there, 6 feet, almost 6'1", almost 200 pounds, and have the ability to track the ball like no other. So he's a guy, if Georgia is lucky enough to get him, I think the Georgia fans would be happy.
So a couple things there from that video. First of all, not to make too much of it, but I think that Terrence is right. The kind of confidence that would lead a young man to say, let me just jump completely over a swimming pool, is also the same kind of competence that I think serves you well at the University of Georgia. I think that Georgia could use a little dose of athletic swagger, kind of an athletic arrogance. I don't mean, a guy that's, not a good team player or anything like that. I just mean a guy that believes in himself and kind of brings that to the forefront at Georgia. I think Georgia could use a dash of that. It seems like Burton's got that in spades, which I think is really good news. The other thing that you hear Terrence tack on to the end of that comment, and this is not a throwaway statement, he says that he goes and tracks the ball like no other. In that Real Talk video that we published with Terrence breaking down a longer stretch of film from Jermaine Burton, Edwards went into more details about that, saying that when it comes to going up and just grabbing the football out of the air, Terrence said that Jermaine's as good at doing that as anyone he's ever seen, that he almost has a natural instinct for, ball skills, going up there and grabbing the football. And that's another reason to really like Burton as a receiver if Georgia fans didn't have enough of those already. So bottom line on this discussion is April 20th is going to be a gigantic day for Georgia. We know it's going to be G-Day, and there's going to be a lot of fun stuff to watch there. But we'll also be paying very close attention to what ultimately happens with the wide receiver Jermaine Burton's decision. I'd love to tell you that it's in the bag, the fact that he's going to do this on Edwards' birthday and honor him with that decision. I'd love to tell you that guarantees it's going to be Georgia. The fact is, that's not the way these things go. It's not a given that we know what Burton's going to choose. After all, Burton's got a lot of potential suitors, Georgia just being among them. But if you're the Dogs, you like being in the fight. And if you're a Georgia fan, you love the way this 2020 class seems to be heating up right now, with a lot of really fun storylines to evolve in the weeks and months ahead, and Jermaine Burton is right at the center of all of that. My name is Brandon Adams, and this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Hello to you, and thanks for being with us. Live on video, 10 a.m., DawgNation Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We're on the radio at noon on Athens Sports Radio 960 The Ref, and we are available as a podcast pretty much wherever podcasts are found, including the world-famous DawgNation.com. Let me give you a quick programming note, and then we'll get on with the business of giving away some of those Braves tickets like I talked about before. So normally on Mondays, it's Chip Towers with us on the program. Chip is away for the next couple of days, so we'll join him back on DawgNation Daily again next week. We've got two really good guests stepping in and filling in for Chip today. In just a couple of minutes, I'm going to get a chance to talk to the great former Georgia running back, Tim Worley. There's a lot to get into with Tim, including the fact that a charge that he gave to Georgia a couple of months ago in this very program, Georgia seems to be following up on and doing exactly what Worley had asked them to do. We'll get his thoughts on that, and then later on today, we'll also talk to Pete Fiutak, a great college football reporter and analyst for collegefootballnews.com. Pete's a really good guest. It's going to be fun to have him on DawgNation Daily here today as well. I want to talk about some really interesting comments from a Georgia player that I heard on Saturday in Athens. That's coming up in just a moment. Before that, let me remind you that baseball is back, and this week it's not only opening week at SunTrust Park, but it's also spring break throughout Metro Atlanta. That's really good news because to celebrate, we got a lot of great activities going on with the Atlanta Braves at SunTrust Park. Let me tell you about all of this right now. Coming up on Thursday the 4th, that's this week, there's a really fun pregame parade that you're going to be a part of there at SunTrust Park. That's on Thursday. An early gate opening for batting practice on Saturday, so you can get there and watch Ronald Acuna and all those guys, Freddie Freeman, go deep and really hit those long batting practice home runs. That's always fun for the kids. A little extra time to do that coming up this Saturday on the 6th. And by the way, speaking of Freddie Freeman, they're going to do an exclusive red Freddie Freeman jersey giveaway for kids on Sunday the 7th. That's an amazing giveaway and something you're definitely going to want to be a part of. And speaking of the red, all Friday games this year are going to be red outs at SunTrust Park. Fans are encouraged to dress in red. Everyone in attendance is going to receive – this is a really cool thing. You've seen the light up Sanford at Sanford Stadium at the start of the fourth quarter. Well, the Braves have a really cool thing kind of like this too, where they do the light up tomahawk chop. Except on Fridays now, you're going to get a piece of red film to put over your phone. So when they do the light chop in the stadium, it's going to turn the whole place red. They bring the house lights down. The whole thing's going to look red. It's going to be an incredible look, and it's going to be a part of what's going to be a great season's worth of promotions there at SunTrust Park. So go to this website. It's braves.com/promos. The website, once again, braves.com/promos. You can find out about everything happening to kick off the season there at SunTrust Park. Atlanta Braves baseball, chop on. And I told you this before, in honor of the Braves and the home opener here today and the opening week here at SunTrust Park this week, we're going to do our part to give away some tickets here on DawgNation Daily. So someone's going to be a winner, and everyone's eligible. Radio audience, video audience, podcast audience. Let me explain to this how it's going to work. We got a pair of tickets to give away for this Thursday's game, and we've got 4 tickets to give away for this Sunday's game. First ever game, Sunday Night Baseball at SunTrust Park. That's kind of a cool deal. These, by the way, are great seats. Terrific seats for the deal on Sunday. So you're going to want to be a part of this. And here is simply all you have to do. Simply go to, if you're watching on video right now in our comment section, Facebook or YouTube, just give us your favorite Braves memory of all time or your all-time favorite Atlanta Brave. And by doing that, we'll take your name, we'll put it in the hat. And if you're listening on the podcast or the radio and you say, well, I can't be a part of the video comment section, we post this show every single day at the world-famous DawgNation.com. So you can go there and put in your same answer. Favorite all-time Brave or favorite Braves memory growing up as being a Braves fan. We'll take all the entrants, we'll put them together, we'll draw a winner for a pair of tickets on Thursday, and we'll draw a winner for 4 tickets to the terrific Sunday night game and some really great seats for that. So that's going to be a lot of fun with the Atlanta Braves here as a part of DawgNation Daily here today. All right, let me now move on just for a bit. I was going to play some Kirby Smart audio. Let me move past that and just go to Isaiah Wilson. I thought that Isaiah Wilson on Saturday had some really interesting things to say. You know, this is a guy that in 2017 was a redshirt freshman and kind of not really able to play for Georgia right away. He saw Andrew Thomas do that. He wasn't quite ready to do that. Kirby Smart was a little critical of the conditioning and how Wilson handled that heat his first year at the University of Georgia. But looking back on that now, after Wilson became a freshman All-American as a redshirt a year ago, I thought that Wilson had an incredible perspective over what he's traveled through to be at the point where he is now. I wrote about this yesterday at DawgNation.com, but I wanted you to hear Isaiah Wilson in his own words. Here is Wilson.
I think my first year, like any high school senior going to an SEC program in college, you have to get over the little hump and adjust and reacclimate to the SEC. So my first year was a learning curve. Second year, they gave an opportunity to go out there and play ball, and that's all I wanted to do.
One of the things I talked about in my written piece on Sunday is we're in the age of a transfer portal where if a guy like Wilson in 2017 was forced to sit and maybe get some hard coaching from Sam Pittman and Kirby Smart, if he was doing all that and watching a guy like Andrew Thomas get the playing time that Wilson probably thought was coming his way. After all, Wilson was a higher-rated recruit than Thomas. In this day and age we're in now, a lot of guys just tuck tail and run. They say Georgia must not be the place for me because these coaches aren't loving on me as much as I want them to do. But Wilson didn't do that, nor did he apparently hold any ill will over the fact that Andrew Thomas was playing more than he was. I love the perspective that Wilson shared on seeing Thomas get in 2017, what presumably Wilson would have liked to have gotten for himself. Here's more from Isaiah.
I want everybody on the team to win. I don't care who you are. If you're on this team and you're in red and black and you're wearing that G and you're out there grinding with me, I want you to win. Whatever's best for the team is what I want. My freshman year, I wasn't ready to play. I sat down and I learned how to be ready to play. In 2018, I played.
I was really impressed with the conversation I got to have with Isaiah Wilson on Saturday, and I wrote about this on Sunday at DawgNation.com. If you get a chance, I'd love to have you go to the website, DawgNation.com, read more about that. I think that was a really impressive showing for Wilson meeting with the media on Saturday, and I have more of my thoughts there at DawgNation.com. You can check that out. We've got Pete Fiutak coming up later on. It's the former Georgia running back, Tim Worley, right now. All right, here on DawgNation Daily, let me explain to you what's going on for those of you who've just joined us. We're going to get Worley coming up in just a couple of minutes. We're also going to get Pete Fiutak later on. We're going to give away these Braves tickets throughout the program. I said this to our video audience was with us off the very top of the show today. We're going to kind of move some pieces around every now and then on DawgNation Daily. We kind of have to do that. So normally we do comments very late in the show. The great news is today, we're going to dive into that a little earlier. It's our R.S. Andrews cool down on the program. We'll do a couple comments late for those of you that can't be in and as busy with the comments as you want right now. We'll kind of do an extended R.S. Andrews cool down at the end of the show, but we wanted to kind of take the sort of larger portion of the R.S. Andrews cool down, move it up a bit today because Worley, Fiutak, they're going to join us a bit later on in the show, and we'll kind of keep rolling on with those Braves ticket giveaway stuff too. So that's kind of everything that's going on today. Let me, before we dive into more comments, quickly remind you that all of this in the free, easy, relaxed environment that is our comment section, it's all brought to you by our friends at R.S. Andrews. You know, we saw the full gamut of weather in the Atlanta area over the last weekend. It was probably, 30-something degrees last night. It's about 35 when I woke up this morning. It was 70-something on Saturday. That's a lot of different weather variables, almost like both extremes. And the ones we trust for all weather, all kinds of weather, here with us at DawgNation is our friends at R.S. Andrews. And it's not just heating and air. It's also plumbing, electric, all that stuff that takes place behind the walls in your house. You want it to be working the way it's supposed to, and if it's not, you want the peace of mind knowing that it's going to get fixed in a timely and cost-efficient manner. That's why you want to trust R.S. Andrews as well. Check them out online at rsandrews.com. Really good stuff on that. Good to have them with us. Let me dive in here and get a few of your comments. Let me pull up these comment sections first, and we'll kind of get into as much of this today as we can, and hope you're looking forward to hearing from Tim Worley a little bit later on. And a really interesting conversation I want to have with Fiutak as well from College Football News. He's been with us before, and I think it's always important from time to time to kind of pull back and find out what people around the country are saying about UGA, and that'll give us a chance to do that. And, boy, I tell you, I loved hearing from Isaiah Wilson on Saturday. I think that Wilson's a really sharp guy, and my only time getting to talk to him previously was right after the Sugar Bowl. And so he's kind of in a bad mood there, and, you know, it's just not a conversation he wants to have. Therefore, it's not an easy conversation for me to have. And so I didn't get the best sense of his personality, but getting a chance to hear more extended comments from him this past weekend, I was really impressed with Wilson. I think that Wilson is a great, you know, emblem of what Georgia can be, and you maybe even see Jamari Salyer kind of following in those footsteps a bit too. I think it's really cool to see patience pay off for these guys that came in as 5 stars, maybe didn't light the world on fire in their first year on campus, but finding that year 2 success. I think it speaks well to these players and their commitment, but I also think it speaks well to Georgia and its ability to develop. And that's, I think, one of the things that 5 stars want, high 4 stars want. They want to go to a program where they know they're going to be developed. In the case of Isaiah Wilson, you see, after playing in Brooklyn, New York, not a hotbed for high school football, you see the level of development that's occurred with him, which I think is a really good piece of news. By the way, Jamel Major weighing in with his favorite Braves memory. Don't forget, we're taking those throughout the program today. Your either all-time favorite Brave or favorite Braves memory, and we're going to put all those together. We're going to draw out a couple winners, a winner for a pair of tickets for Thursday's game and a winner for 4 tickets for the Sunday game. So good stuff coming up there. We appreciate the way that you all are weighing in on that. Ro Hawkins asking about Justin Robinson and Kendall Milton linking up maybe with the Dogs. Obviously, we talked about this last week on DawgNation Daily, that Robinson has been vocal in trying to lure Kendall Milton UGA's way, and we've certainly had our fun with some of the things that Milton has said as of late. I know Jeff Sentell recently caught up again with Robinson to talk more about that, and y'all know around here, we're just huge fans of recruits that want to recruit other recruits. We think that's an incredible leadership standard. We think that guys like Jake Fromm and Richard LeCount, certainly, Nolan Smith, even Justin Fields, who's no longer at Georgia, on his way towards Georgia, was a good recruit for the program. We think that's a really good thing, and it's fun to see Justin Robinson following in those footsteps with that. A lot of folks kind of weighing in on some of the old school Brave stuff as well. Somebody mentioned Bob Horner and Dale Murphy a moment ago. If you're like me and you're a child of the 80s, seeing those 80s names show up there is a really fun thing to add into this discussion. Yeah, there was Braves history before 1991. As much as that string of division titles is a special memory for me, you know, in my high school and college years, I was a Braves fan back in the 80s as well, when the success probably wasn't quite as significant as it would come to be, but still, you couldn't have told me as a kid that Dale Murphy wasn't the greatest player of all time, because when that's all you got, that you certainly treat him with reverence. And it's also kind of neat, not to hijack the conversation, but it's also kind of neat to see in this kind of new age of the Hall of Fame, where at one point in time, it seemed like Murphy was almost totally excluded from that discussion, you know, finishing just south of 400 home runs and, you know, did win back-to-back MVPs, but maybe missing out on some of the other accolades that some of the players of his generation got. This kind of post-steroid era, we're reconsidering some of these careers. Harold Baines just got in the Hall of Fame, and it looks like there's a bit of a reconsideration going for Dale Murphy here, too, which I think is really good news. Connor Riley normally joins us late. He'll join us here in just a couple of minutes. We're also about probably 8 minutes away from Tim Worley on the program here today, too. By the way, Stacy Goebel going way back in the past. Chris Chambliss, who, you know, was a great Yankee back in the 70s, but kind of finished his career with the Braves. There was that period in the 80s when a lot of guys kind of came to Atlanta for their final stop, and Chambliss was one of those as well, somewhere around like 85, 86, something like that, I think, for Chris Chambliss in Atlanta. Connor Riley joins us.
I don't personally have a favorite Braves memory because I grew up a Red Sox fan, but, you know, it is encouraging to see a lot of fans, you know, talking about favorite Braves memories and not, you know, how they look this weekend.
Well, I will say this. To me, this is actually a sneaky good week to be in Atlanta. There was no traffic coming into work today. I know a lot of people get out of town for spring break. To have the Braves in town this week and to have the roads somewhat cleared up, I got to tell you, as a consolation prize for not going to the beach, that's a pretty good one for sure. And boy, a lot of folks weighing in on their Braves memories. We can also talk plenty of Georgia Bulldogs here too. Connor, I'll set this up for you to kind of react. One of the things we're going to do a lot over the next few days, we just don't have time to get into all this today. We just got so much going on. But one of the things we're going to talk about in the next few days is a few things. I was really impressed with Isaiah Wilson on Saturday. I do think, as I've written about and talked about now, I do think his story is a really interesting one. But something else I wanted to add, had a chance to spend a few minutes with Stetson Bennett this weekend. And first of all, it's interesting. I don't mean to be inside baseball, but it's interesting that Georgia even made Bennett available to speak. I think that gives you a real strong indication that he's well on his way to being the number 2 quarterback for Georgia this year. Had a chance to see Dwan Mathis throw a little bit again on Saturday. I saw a repeat of what I'd seen earlier in the week. Mathis right now, when it comes to the throwing, just the results of the throws, I think he's still a bit of a work in progress. So from that standpoint, at least to my own eyes, based on a couple of days' worth of observations and brief windows both times, it looks like Bennett's the more accurate thrower. By having Bennett speak to reporters, that seems to be that Georgia believes he's on his way to being that number 2 quarterback, at least in my mind. And he does have a little something going on. I mean, he's a personality. He's got an interesting look to him, got a little bit of a mustache, a little bit of a kind of a fully grown head of hair. I don't really know how to describe it. Kind of a lot of hair. Pretty confident, pretty thoughtful with his answers. Even really getting very introspective into why I didn't do better at the junior college level. Admitting a bit. I asked him about, when you think about Baker Mayfield, who he's been compared to. In the case of Mayfield, he had a chip on his shoulder. He had an edge about him because he had some doubters. And Bennett said, I kind of do too. I think one of the things you're going to see on DawgNation a lot over the next couple of days, I'm sure from Chip and Mike writing, we'll talk about here on the program, is Stetson Bennett. I don't know what it means in terms of being good on an SEC field, but Bennett's got a little bit of hey, who is this guy to him? He kind of comes across as more than just your average run-of-the-mill player. He's a personality in addition to kind of an intriguing prospect.
I mean, I wouldn't put too much stock in what he says to the media, but, you do kind of like to see a guy who is a backup who, as Georgia saw 2 years ago with Jake Fromm coming in for Jacob Eason, you want to have a backup who is confident if he is required to go into the game, he's like, all right, I can handle this. Everything's going to be A-okay and we'll be all right there.
Yeah, so I won't pretend to know what kind of player he's going to be when he gets on the field because I'm always going to be skeptical of someone from a size standpoint that doesn't necessarily bring a lot to the table. I guess what I'm saying is, having talked to a lot of players over the years, most of them kind of seem the same, and something about Bennett felt a little bit different. For a guy that hasn't played a lot of big-time football yet, he does not seem to be lacking in confidence, and that's at least something, because when Chip Towers wrote that thing the other day about Bennett, that's one of the things I said, I think it was even a part of our R.S. Andrews cool-down, that it might be that if you're going to be kind of a short quarterback and find your way onto an SEC scholarship spot, because even just doing that is a heck of an accomplishment given what most backup quarterbacks around the SEC look like. If you're going to find your way into doing that, you got to have a little bit of edge about you. You got to have a little bit of overdosed confidence. Otherwise, all you're going to do is have a tendency to want to believe all the people who've told you along the way that, no, you're not a quarterback at the SEC level. You got to have something on the inside that allows you to kind of block that out. And having spent a few minutes talking to Bennett, it's easy to understand how it is that he's been able to block out what must have been a just litany of doubts and litany of wouldn't you be happier going to play a little somewhere else, a little smaller, a little easier? Wouldn't you be happier charting a different course for yourself? It's a little easier to understand how Bennett was able to block that out.
Yeah. Now, I will say, because there are people who would like to see Mathis. He's had, 5-6 practices now.
Yeah.
Like, Bennett was always going to have a leg up on him just because he's been through a Georgia football spring practice before, sort of knows the reps. So, in addition to working on focusing, improving his game, he knows sort of all the other little things that come with being a full-time college football player. Whereas Mathis just doesn't have that right now, and that'll come. But again, it just with Mathis, it's early, and you can kind of see he's gonna go through some growing pains. Almost every young player does. To your point, Isaiah Wilson did. Jamari Sawyer is someone who made his way onto the when he was at the media viewing period of practice this week, was working with the first team on the offensive line. And a lot of these guys, it is a transition going from, the high school level to being full-time, big-time college football.
Matt Rukavina reminds us that Eric Stokes called Stetson Bennett a generational quarterback over the weekend. I was actually listening to Stokes when he said that. He went on to explain that what he meant by that was it's just kind of unusual to see someone of Bennett's stature even in competition to be among the quarterbacks in the Georgia roster. So from that standpoint, he's at least generational in the fact that there aren't going to be a lot of quarterbacks over the course of a generation at Georgia who kind of look like Stetson Bennett. So I think that's what Stokes kind of meant from that. But Stokes, indeed, like a lot of Georgia players, have had some good things to say about him. We're about a minute away from Tim Worley. I also enjoyed Philip Jordan Wells' comment referencing A Bronx Tale, a great movie, Robert De Niro directorial debut, I believe. One of my personal under-the-radar favorite movies. So good stuff on that. Connor mentioned Jamari Salyer getting a chance to work with the number ones at practice a bit as a right guard ahead of Ben Cleveland. If we have some time in kind of a later edition of our R.S. Andrews Cool Down, I do want to talk about that a bit more. I got a few thoughts on that, although I don't know that they're fully developed as of yet. But one of the exciting storylines of the last week as Georgia goes through practice 5 and 6 heading into this week, getting a little closer to G-Day. One of the exciting storylines for me has been the emergence of Jamari Salyer. And I do think, and I wrote about this a bit, I do think it contrasts or compares nicely with what we saw from Isaiah Wilson a year ago. So I think that's all really good stuff. And ultimately, I'm a guy that wants to see Ben Cleveland on the field too, so I don't really necessarily have a rooting interest in that battle. But I do like the fact that you got a couple 5-stars, former 5-stars, going head-to-head in what seems like a pretty intense competition with Salyer and Ben Cleveland. I think that's really fun. And don't forget, Kirby Smart also told us last week that it's not just right guard at which Salyer's working. He's also working a bit right now at that right tackle position too. So Salyer becoming almost like the right side version of what I think of as kind of the left side guy, Cade Mays. A versatile guy that can play a couple different positions. That is a lot of fun to think about. We'll get more of your comments coming up here on DawgNation Daily. Let's get back to our regular broadcast right now as we welcome back a terrific guest, the former Georgia running back, Tim Worley. And boy, what a thrill it is. His last appearance on DawgNation Daily, Georgia fans raved about. They loved what they got a chance to hear from the great former Georgia running back, Tim Worley, one of my favorites growing up, and a real honor to get a chance to speak to him here once again today on DawgNation Daily. Tim, thank you so much for your time once again. We appreciate you making time for us, and welcome back to DawgNation Daily. Hope you're doing well.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Anytime, Mr. Adams.
Well, let me start with this. When you were on the program a couple of, I guess it's been a couple months ago now, you talked about the T-shirts that you and your teammates wore back for Coach Dooley in the 80s, the big team, little me, and you talked about how important that was for you, your own story of what you overcame to get into the NFL, that buying into the team concept was really important for you. And lo and behold, I think for the folks watching on video, I think we even have the video of this to show, lo and behold, not too long ago, Georgia was seen during some of its winter workouts wearing that same message, big team, little me, on its T-shirt. How nice is it for you to think that Georgia might indeed be embracing that? And when you look ahead to a 2019 season where Georgia's going to be facing high expectations, how much do you believe putting the team ahead of individual concerns, how much could that help you, GA, this year?
Well, I'm going to always believe that being a team player is always going to help because, believe it or not, whether we want to believe it or not, you can't reach your destiny by yourself. There's always people that are going to come along in your life to help you reach that. And it really encourages me to see that the Georgia team right now and the coaching staff is embracing big team, little me, because it takes everybody, every mind and every heart, even the guys that are not playing on the sidelines, on the benches, to be involved, to get these things to go to the next level. And the next level is winning a national championship.
My guess is you probably knew pretty early on in your career that you had a chance to be an NFL player, and there are a lot of guys in this Georgia roster now who have those same aspirations. They've seen enough talent from themselves to know the NFL could be their next step, or individual awards could be coming their way. When you've got that kind of talent at your disposal, when you've got that kind of athletic potential, does committing yourself to a team become a harder thing to do? Is that just real life to say that for a lot of guys, and you were right there facing some of the same kind of stuff because you obviously knew what might be lying ahead for you, is it harder to put the team ahead of you when you do have pretty significant individual concerns?
Not really. It all starts in the heart, and no matter how great you are as an individual, your talents and your gifts, you need your team. And I know we live in a time now that things are a little bit different. We have so many different ways to earn money now. But I still believe in the team concept. I still believe that once you sign that paper and you're part of that team, and I want these guys to understand, I'm not telling them that they shouldn't do these things. I'm just saying consider your steps. The one reason I made a step in going to the NFL on my redshirt junior year is because, number one, I blew my knee out my sophomore year, and I never thought I was going to make it back. So when that opportunity came and I knew I was going to be a for sure top 10 pick in the first round, I made a decision to leave. And that was right for me. So I'm not saying I don't agree with these guys, because you got to make a decision for yourself and what's right for your family. But I do believe that even in that decision, you can stay committed to the team and do it the right way.
I think that's well said. Speaking of running backs in this roster right now, DeAndre Swift is a guy that, let's face it, there is a chance that he could be a part of the biggest conversation of all at the end of the year. This is a guy that might even be in a Heisman conversation. However, we're also in a day and age now where quarterbacks throw it all over the yard. It's a lot different than it was back in the 80s when, Coach Dooley was obviously very committed to the run. Now, these days, the media, other coaches, they love that passing game. Georgia still thinks of itself as running back university, but can a running back like Swift still be the centerpiece of an offense for a team that might win the national championship, or can a guy like this still be a part of that Heisman conversation in a day and age where everything seems to be about the quarterback right now?
Well, I believe that he can, because he's a three-dimensional player. He can run the ball, he can catch it, and he can also put him back there and receive punts, return kicks, and DeAndre, he kind of reminds me a little bit, not just because he wears number 7, but he reminds me a little of a Rodney Hampton,
sure,
maybe a little bit more shiftier, but he has the potential to be that three-dimensional guy. I believe that, his size, his speed, he can be that main guy.
Yeah, I think, listen, I think a lot of Georgia fans are certainly excited to see what he brings to the table and in what could be his final year in a Georgia uniform here in 2019. And another guy there's some excitement about is another running back, and that's Zamir White. But White's story. He tore his ACL at the end of his high school career, and then last year, what was supposed to be his freshman season at Georgia, also had a different ACL tear on the other knee right before the season's supposed to begin. And now we move into 2019, and there's some hope that Zamir White can be back. He was seen doing some drills on Saturday during practice, not contact stuff or anything like that. But, Tim, he's trying to come back from 2 different ACL injuries over the course of the last 2 years. As a former running back yourself, how difficult is this going to be for White, and is there any kind of advice you would give him about any of this?
Well, number one, it is a difficult task to come back, and my heart goes out to Zamir, because he worked so hard. And if you understand what this kid came from just at birth, I don't know if you guys ever heard about his story, but he's overcome a lot, and he's a fighter. This kid has a big heart, and I believe that he will come back with a full recovery, and I believe he will be that guy that the University of Georgia recruited a couple of years ago. He has a great big heart. He's tough, and I'm rooting for him, man. I want to see this kid get out there and play.
And you understand how this is, because you're one of those guys that you want to be on the field as a running back. You want to get those carries. And we saw this video of him last year, Tim, and, he was already doing some of the taekwondo stuff and some of the, the kicking stuff and, kind of get that, I guess, that mobility back to that knee and the kind of drive and determination we've seen from him on the field when he's been healthy. That's the same kind of approach you've got to take to an injury recovery, too, is it not?
Yes, you got to take that same approach. And if I could speak to Zamir today, because number one, he has a dream, and he wants to be that great football player for his team and for himself and for his family. But at the same time, you got to look at other guys that have went through something similar that he's going through. I think of the great linebacker from the University of Georgia, Thomas Davis. This kid went through 3 different major knee surgeries, and he came back and had a stellar career. And then you look at Nick Chubb. No one thought that he was going to be able to make it back, but he made it back in a year. And I believe that Zamir White has that same heart and that same drive to make it back, because guess what? You are a University of Georgia tailback, okay? And we set things straight at the University of Georgia when it comes to running back.
I love that. Let me talk about another running back for a second while we got this conversation going. That's Brian Harrion. How interesting and special do you think it is that for a guy like Harrion, who, let's face it, he could have left Georgia after this past year, could have had his choice of going to another school. He hasn't gotten a ton of carries left, so far in a UGA uniform. Looked good in the Sugar Bowl against Texas, but has been kind of waiting his turn for a while. And now here in his final season at UGA, he's got that chance. He's shown some patience to hang around here at UGA and kind of emerge a little bit the way that Elijah Holyfield may have done for Georgia last year. What does it say to you about that young man's character that he is willing to kind of wait it out and prove that he belongs at Georgia and he didn't just take off and look for an easy opportunity to go play somewhere else? What does that say to you about Harrion and the expectations that fans ought to have for him in what will be his final year this year?
Well, it speaks to me great, tremendous character, and it speaks to me that he has a heart of humility, and he's going to wait his turn. And it's just like I spoke about Zamir White. When you have that dream and that desire, you're going to wait your turn, because one of the things that I do like the way what Coach Smart is doing and the coaching staff, every day you're competing. One individual might be that number one at that position, but guess what? That position is up for grabs. Anything could go down. Anybody could get hurt, and you have to be ready. I hate to bring this into this conversation, but you got to think of Jalen Hurts and Tua. Tua went down. Jalen Hurts was ready, and he came in. Look what happened. And by the way, Brandon, I'm still sour about that. But anyway, that's another story. But anyway, you see the example. So he exhibited great character. And I believe any of these young men now that see that, their chances are not that good, that you got another person in front of you, maybe even second or third team. Anybody that can maintain and wait their turn, it speaks tremendous character, and to me, it's a compliment to the way he was raised.
Well, Tim, it's always so much fun to talk football with you. You've got a great perspective. You're also doing some great things in the community as well. For folks who want to find out more about what you've got going on, how can they find you on social media and get in touch with what you're up to these days?
Well, my business is Worley Global Enterprises. My website is WorleyGlobalEnterprises.com. My Twitter handle is Worley Global Biz. And my wife get mad at me because I forget my Instagram. But you can find me on Instagram, too. And some of the things that I'm doing today, I'm steady traveling the country and speaking to NCAA schools and different places, corporate businesses, and just enjoying life, man. Life is good at 52.
I love to hear that. Thanks so much for your time. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, Adam.
Let's take a look around the rest of the league. This is SEC Through.
Yeah, how can you not leave a conversation with Tim Worley just feeling really good about life and energized about everything, but especially that running back position in Georgia. I love the pride that former Georgia running backs take in the great heritage of running the football that continues at UGA right now. With Harrion and with DeAndre Swift and with Zamir White on his way back, you love to hear that. By the way, on video, I've been enjoying watching a lot of your comments roll in as we're giving away Braves tickets here on DawgNation Daily today. It's our way of celebrating the start of the home opener today for the Atlanta Braves, and a great, homestand worth of activities going on here as well. So continue to put that in there in the Facebook or the YouTube comment section for those people watching live. Favorite Brave memory, favorite all-time Atlanta Brave. We'll take all the commenters, we'll put them together. And if you're listening on radio or podcast, you say, BA, we want to participate in this as well. We want a chance to win those tickets for the Thursday game or those 4 tickets that you're giving away for the Sunday game. We want to get a chance to get in on those Braves ticket giveaways as well. Totally understand that. We want to make you be a part of this as well. So when we post the show at the world-famous DawgNation.com, our podcast link for today, when we post that up there, simply put your answer to this question, Braves memory, favorite Brave, in the comment section down there at the bottom of the page at the world-famous DawgNation.com, and we'll include your entries into the larger pile, and we'll draw out a winner for a pair of tickets on Thursday. Someone's going to win 4 tickets for the Sunday night game as ESPN comes into Atlanta. That's going to be really good stuff. We will do that here today. We will announce the winner for that tomorrow to give people a chance to kind of get in and get all that stuff commented on. All right, let me also mention this, by the way, speaking of the Atlanta Braves, a couple other really cool things that I want you to be aware of. You know, Ronald Acuna, what a great rookie season he had, Rookie of the Year. Well, this Wednesday, that's April 3rd, all fans who purchase a specialty ticket package will also receive a collectible limited edition coin. I love Braves collectibles, especially when it comes to Ronald Acuna stuff. My guess is there's a little value added onto that, given the fact that it's got Acuna's name on it. That's a really cool giveaway. And coming up on April 12th, you may have heard it, but it said that winter is coming. Well, the Braves are doing a kind of a cool thing with that. They're doing a Game of Thrones night. Now, my family, we've been to the Star Wars nights in the past. I'm assuming that Game of Thrones night is going to be really cool as well. My guess is you'll see a lot of costumes and things like that with a Game of Thrones. That's really fun stuff. Just go to Braves.com/promos to find out all the stuff that's going on. Atlanta Braves baseball chop on. Really fun stuff to get rolling here as the Braves welcome back to 2019 season with the home opener today and a lot of stuff. Fun stuff coming up with this homestand. All right, let me squeeze in a couple of really quick SEC stories here. First of all, how about Auburn in the Final Four? I got to tell you, I'm not that excited about that, although it was a thrilling game with Kentucky yesterday. And, boy, I got to tell you, Calipari, he has not had a great run in the NCAA tournament as late. Maybe this might be the reason why they're celebrating Eddie Grand so much in Lexington right now. Coach Cal not exactly giving him a whole lot to talk about, but pretty good basketball showing for the SEC yesterday in the Elite Eight. Thought it was kind of funny. Urban Meyer was down in Florida participating in some sort of golf tournament. He was asked about Dan Mullen, and, boy, he's talking up Mullen. He's the right guy. But I thought it was very interesting how he stopped short in these comments, and maybe I'll put a link to the story for this at DawgNation.com. He stopped short of putting a time frame on when this might happen for Dan Mullen, essentially insinuating, hey, I got to wait and see what the talent level's like. I got to wait and see what that's all about before I move on and make a prediction for Mullen to do too much. But kind of interesting comments from Urban Meyer when it comes to Dan Mullen. I thought there was a really interesting story at Sports Illustrated. Andy Staples had this, looking at Nick Saban in Alabama and how accommodating and welcoming Nick Saban's been with NFL scouts. It's a really interesting read. I will put a link to this up when we put the podcast up at DawgNation.com today, because apparently not every program is super accommodating with NFL scouts. Some programs are worried about having too many NFL guys around the program. They think they may be spies for some of their rivals, or they just think it's not a good look to have NFL guys getting too much access to information about their players. This was really interesting. You'll be happy to know from reading this, or at least I assume you'll be happy, that Kirby Smart has also kind of followed in Saban's lead at Georgia, kind of doing some of the same kind of stuff, making Georgia be the kind of place that NFL scouts feel comfortable. It's weird to think that some programs might not be doing that, but apparently they're not, although it looks like that Georgia is a little bit like Saban in doing that. I'll also mention this as we get ready to wrap up our SEC through here in just a moment, that Vanderbilt hosted its spring game over the weekend. So you can feel pretty good about knowing that we are in that spring football season. Georgia will be the last. Dogs won't go till April 20th, but we have kicked off the spring portion of the season, at least when it comes to spring games. Commodores went first up, and all the other big SEC programs will be following up a little bit later on. We'll make that your SEC through. And coming up in just a couple of minutes, we're going to get Pete Fiutak from collegefootballnews.com. Pete's a really good guest on DawgNation Daily, a guy that we've enjoyed having on before. In fact, he's with us right now. Let's welcome in Pete Fiutak, College Football News, a website that I have liked for a long time. Always a fun read and a terrific personality. Kind of at the helm of that is our buddy Pete Fiutak, back on DawgNation Daily once again. Pete, thanks so much for making some time for us today, and we appreciate your perspective. Welcome to the program.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Let me start with you with something that we have talked about in the last couple of weeks just a little bit. If you look at the recent track record of college football, take out Dabo Swinney for a moment, I guess take out Mac Brown from 2005 for a moment. Other than that, coaches that have won national championships seem to win them pretty quickly in their first 4 years usually. Well, Kirby Smart's now going into his fourth year at Georgia. There's at least one perspective that might say, hey, that puts a little bit of pressure on Kirby to get it done this year, especially given the fact that Georgia's probably going to be a top 3 team in the preseason. It's probably also a little tougher to win a national championship than it used to in recent years, just because of how much resources and capital have kind of been gathered up by teams like Clemson and Alabama. So I guess, Pete, my question for you is, where do you land on this? How much pressure do you think Kirby Smart's facing kind of moving into his fourth year to put himself in that national championship coach club?
It's an interesting thought. First coming to mind is guys like Bobby Bowden and Tom Osborne and even Joe Paterno to a certain extent, who were around for a long, long time before finally getting there first. Yes, Bob Stoops won run right away. Jimbo Fisher won one early on at Florida State. To go with your theory, Nick Saban was pretty quick to do it once he took over Alabama and at LSU as well. I don't think there's pressure for that. I kind of think the idea of, if we're going off the theory, kind of like the NCAA tournament theory, where all you can kind of reasonably do is year after year after year field teams that are good enough to get in. I think the first step when it comes to a guy like Kirby Smart at this point is just keep bringing in the big recruiting classes.
Yeah.
Just keep amassing talent. And I think that I don't want to say pressure on him because, look, he's been close. I mean, they were close last year. I thought they should have. That was one of the. Forget what happened against Texas. That was still one of the 4 best teams in college football and should have been in the college football playoff. They come within a whisper of winning it a couple of years ago. Just keep fielding really awesome teams, and 1 year you're gonna have your break. Everything's gonna go the right way, and you're gonna make that run. And that's again the kind of the NCAA March Madness idea of all you can reasonably do is keep getting team after team after team out there, and eventually you're gonna get that right break. And with Kirby Smart, it's a little bit different for football, obviously. But what you need to do is just keep getting those recruiting classes, keep having a top 4 or 5 team every year, and 1 year those breaks are going to go your way.
I think that's a really interesting point, and I think it sort of leads to a little bit of a dilemma for Georgia fans because when the only way you can measure yourself, or maybe when the predominant way of measuring yourself is, did you beat Alabama or did you get a chance to play Clemson and knock them off? Let's face it, that's a pretty tough mountain to climb, and so therefore coming up short against Alabama the last couple of years, I think if you're a Georgia fan, you've got to sort of focus on what Georgia has been able to do. Georgia has a win in the college football playoff. In recent years, not that many teams can say they've been able to do that. Georgia has accomplished a #1 class in 2018. So it sounds like what I'm hearing you say, and I think this is an important thing to put into the conversation. You do see some evidence that Kirby Smart's more than just, I guess a replication of what had been going on with the Richt era, that he's done some things that that Georgia was not able to do before he got here.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously. I mean, look at what's happening in the world right now. I mean, Alabama's Alabama. Until Nick Saban goes away, this isn't going to stop. I mean, so this is an all-timer of a juggernaut thing that he has put together here. Clemson's obviously been fantastic. They also catch the break by playing in the ACC, where you're not getting as many nasty games as you're getting elsewhere. Now, the concern becomes, if you're Kirby Smart, or if you're Georgia, it was kind of like the Mark Richt problem a little bit to a certain extent, where when it's your turn, then you got to take advantage of it. I'm going to get my years wrong here, but whatever year it was that Mark Richt had Noshawn Marino and Matthew Stafford, when they were #1 to start the season, and there was a whole finish the drill thing, it was like, all right, this is the year you kind of built to get that 1 year and that 1 point, and it didn't happen. But again, to your point, what is your goal here? And look at LSU. LSU's got an amazing program, and they've bashed their heads against the wall over the last few years because you've got Alabama sitting right there. Look at what happened when Kevin Sumlin first took over at Texas A&M, and the Johnny Manziel year, they were making a whole bunch of noise. They actually beat Alabama, and they didn't even win the division. Same thing with Hugh Freeze when he was at Ole Miss. He put together a couple of nice seasons, or Bobby Petrino when he was at Arkansas. I mean, you can come really close and then still not get the job done because you're going to run into that Alabama wall. So if you're Georgia at this point, if you could just get to 11-1, get to the SEC championship, and it's a lofty goal for anybody. That's asking the world. If you can do that on a regular basis, I think everything. I think it's more than reaching your expectations.
As a national writer, I'd love to get your perspective on Jake Fromm for a moment, because no one denies that Jake Fromm is a good quarterback. I think that's the starting point for everybody. However, once you get more specific than that, there are some draft scouts who think he'll be a top 5 pick after next season, and there's some Georgia fans who think he should have been benched in favor of Justin Fields. From someone who watches, at least tries to watch every quarterback, what do you think of Jake Fromm, and which end of that very different spectrum do you kind of come down on as what Fromm's done through 2 years and what you expect him to do in his junior season here in 2019?
When it comes to NFL draft scouting, when now in a world where we have Baker Mayfield and potentially Kyler Murray going number 1 overall, I give up. In terms of thinking what is and what isn't a top pro quarterback, personally, I'm a big fan of the guy, the 6'5", 230 guys who, with the rocket arms. I'm more of a Dwayne Haskins fan than a Kyler Murray type of fan. So when you've got a guy like Jake Fromm, absolutely he can play in the league. I mean, absolutely he's got, the mindset, the arm strength, the skills to make that happen. Does he have the raw skills that you might want to? Is he a 6'5", 230 guy who can run a 4.40? No, but you don't necessarily need that. I don't think he's a top 5 caliber pick. But what I saw from Jake Fromm, being on the field there for the Alabama game of the national championship, and seeing how he handled himself, time and again throughout last season, and again against Oklahoma, that guy was the coolest guy in the room. And there's something to be said for being the unflappable type that just he's able to knock out a guy like Jacob Eason, who was also obviously a number 1 caliber recruit. He was able to get past a guy like Justin Fields. He just kind of has that it factor. I'm not going to blame him for the Texas loss. I'm not going to blame him for, certainly, forget the stats. I thought he was fantastic against Alabama under those circumstances. He has been terrific. And you can't really fault a guy who was able to get the program to an SEC championship 2 seasons in a row. And let's see what he does his junior year. Now that he's had 2 years under his belt, let's see if he can take his game to another level and be one of those quarterbacks that you all of a sudden can win because you've got Jake Fromm, a quarterback.
Let me finish this, if you don't mind. Before you joined us, Tim Worley, who was a great running back for Georgia in the 80s, was on our program. We were talking about the current state of college football and the fact that we're in a very pass-happy age now. I think it was Andy Staples the other day at Sports Illustrated that wondered, could a running back still win the Heisman despite the fact that Derrick Henry won it in 2015? We've just become so quarterback-heavy in this sport. Can running backs still do that? Well, Georgia's got a running back this year. If running backs can be in the discussion, it seems like DeAndre Swift might be able to. First of all, what's your opinion of kind of run-heavy Georgia, Swift in some respects leading the way for the offense? Can a guy like that still be the face of a national championship caliber offense? And could a guy like Swift find himself in New York at the end of the year?
Absolutely, and it is kind of crazy to your point that you've got a guy like Jonathan Taylor who is putting up historic numbers for Wisconsin as a 2,000-yard season. It's like, okay, that's kind of cool. It's hard to do, but part of the problem is, kind of going along the lines of the national title discussion before, that's hard to do. Winning a Heisman is really hard. And it sounds like, of course it is, but it takes a whole lot of things. You have to have a perfect storm of stuff to happen just to get close. Think of all the historically amazing players who never won a Heisman, from Peyton Manning to Adrian Peterson and on and on and on. Aaron Rodgers when he was great at Cal, all these great guys, because you have to, 1, put up the humongous numbers, 2, you have to do something magical that captures the imagination of the voters in the college football season, and 3, your team has to win a lot. And so you have to, if you're a guy like Jake Fromm, for example, or if you're DeAndre Swift, you have to, 1, get the numbers, which are going to be hard at a place like Georgia because you're not going to put up big passing numbers necessarily, and you're going to rotate the running back. Todd Gurley didn't win the Heisman, wasn't really close to it. Nick Chubb wasn't really in the mix for a Heisman. It's so hard to do, but you're going to have the part of it that's going to at least have the big games and the chances to capture the imagination. And if you look at the last 2 years, it took Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield to put up two of the greatest statistical seasons, at least in terms of passing efficiency, in the history of college football to win the Heisman. That's where the bar was set. So it's really kind of, if you win a lot of games and you have a guy who can put up big numbers in the big moments, then you're in the Heisman chase.
Pete, I'm a fan of college football news. I appreciate your time on the program today. For people who want more of the work that you're doing, how can they find you?
Very simple, collegefootballnews.com, and all over Twitter at Call Football News, COL Football News. And now it's, in a weird way, it's April. It's that fun time of year when we get to really do the deep dives in these teams and get to figure out what they are going to be for the coming season coming up.
Always fun. We'll look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Hey, Todd, have a great one.
Yeah, good stuff there, Pete Fiutak. I like the work that he's doing, College Football News. That's a fun website. By the way, I mentioned spring break before. Don't forget that right in time for spring break at Kroger, you can earn 4 times the fuel points on vacation gift cards at your local Kroger. What a great way to get ready for your spring break vacation, and a good way to save, too. Huge thanks to Kroger for doing that. Let me also let you know that around here we're Gator haters. We believe that all Georgia fans should be, and we love knowing it's been 884 days since those lousy, stinking Gators have beaten Georgia. Also, good news for Georgia on another rivalry front this weekend. Former Dawg Kevin Kisner took down Matt Kuchar in what was a terrific, a great PGA Tour. Actually, it's a WGC event, but it's a match play event. This thing had a lot of fireworks, and Kisner walked away a winner. That was a lot of fun. Also, big congratulations go out to the Diamond Dogs. Took 2 of 3 on Thursday, Friday, Saturday against Kentucky. The Saturday game was a wild game. Early morning start, had to hold on late, but 2 of 3 nonetheless. We'll see you tomorrow right back here on DawgNation Daily. And on video, for those of you that don't join us until much later, you may be wondering what in the world's going on. So we kind of moved some pieces around on the playing board a bit today. Had 2 great guests. You just heard Pete Fiutak from collegefootballnews.com. If you're just joining us earlier, we had a terrific conversation with the great former Georgia running back Tim Worley. Chip Towers will be back with us again next week. We were doing things just a bit differently today, and to accommodate our guests on some time issues, we actually decided to move up our R.S. Andrews cool down to a bit earlier in the program. So we're not going to stay on super long now because we've already done a good bit of comments, and we got to get our radio show delivered, and we've got to get everything else up and running on that. But we will take a couple more, and don't forget to get your response into our earlier question about your favorite Braves memory, your favorite all-time Braves player. For everyone who mentions that either in our video comment sections on Facebook or YouTube, or in our regular comment section, we post the podcast later on at the world-famous DawgNation.com. We'll take a couple winners out. Someone's going to win a pair of tickets to the Braves game on Thursday, and then someone's going to win 4 tickets, wonderful, wonderful seats for the Sunday night game as ESPN Sunday Night Baseball comes to SunTrust Park for the first time. So that's what's coming up here in just a moment. Let me, though, get a couple more comments in before we get ready to get off the air. Kelly Burnett says this is one of the best UGA baseball teams we've had. It is a very good team right now. They are dealing with some injuries right now, though. I mean, I won't pretend to be an expert on the full lineup 1 through 8, but I know they've had a couple pretty significant injuries, and right now they are working their way through that. That was a little bit obvious in the game on Saturday, that at least one of those spots where they've got some inexperience might be hurting them a bit, but they're finding a way to win games. They've won every SEC series thus far this year, sweeping South Carolina, taking 2 of 3 in LSU, 2 really fun Sunday games against both the Gamecocks and the Tigers, and then on the road against Kentucky this weekend. And they had a grand slam early. They were up like 5-1 or something like that, and ended up having to hold on, go an extra inning. So a game that's supposed to start at 10 because of the threat of weather, and you have those game time changes a lot in college baseball, especially on that last day. They don't want to get stuck on the road on these long SEC road trips. So the game starts at 10, ends up not finishing till like well after 2 or something like that. So Saturday was kind of a wild day for the Diamond Dogs, but they do get the W nonetheless. Andrew Hughes says, over the next few years, do you think the defensive line will be as good as the offensive line, BA? That's obviously the challenge that Trey Scott's facing, and he's got to prove he's as dynamic a recruiter as Sam Pittman's been. The honest truth is, matching what Pittman's been able to do along the offensive line is not going to be good, because I'd be curious to know, and I know that 24/7 and Rivals, they do their position coach rankings every single year, or just generic recruiter rankings. I mean, how many assistant coaches in the country have out-recruited Sam Pittman at any position. How many guys have dominated their position more than Pittman's dominated with the offensive line? It'd be hard to imagine anyone's done much better than that. So if that's the comparison for Trey Scott, it's a tough comparison. But in a year like this, when you look at, if we had to say, okay, not to be negative, but what are the 3 or 4 reasons why Georgia might not get over the hump and might not win the national championship? A little bit of a thin depth situation along the defensive line would be one of the most prominent issues mentioned. So it's hard to be as good a recruiter as Sam Pittman has been, but if Trey Scott doesn't turn out to be that, then Georgia's going to not be as solid of a national championship contender as otherwise might be. I think that you can feel pretty good about bringing in Trey Walker. I think that the expectations for Zion Logue and Timon Mitchell are significant. I think people think they have a chance to do some of the stuff that Jordan Davis has done for the program. I think obviously Trayvon Walker is one of the all-time, or at least in recent memory, great defensive line prospect the state of Georgia's produced. That's a major coup to get him win that battle with Clemson for him. At one point in time, Walker was strongly considering Clemson, and Georgia steps in and wins that one. You got to give credit to the coaching staff for being able to do that. You look ahead to 2020. I like Jamil Burroughs. And I like that addition to the Georgia class. I like Nazir Stackhouse. I like that addition to the Georgia class. And there are obviously other names that Georgia's going to be chasing down. But clearly, Trey Scott and that coaching staff has got a job to do to match what has happened along the offensive line. I think that's a very fair question. Very fair question. Kirk Warner in the YouTube comment section blocking folks. Kirk Warner was very good at doing that during his UGA career. My guess is he's probably pretty good at blocking folks in the comment section here too. Cliff Payne says, I'm a believer in Trey Hill. I think he has enormous potential and gained valuable experience already last year. And I think that's well said. I think that Dean is, I should say, I think that Hill is a really good prospect. And I thought it was interesting to see more examples from Georgia over the weekend. Really, Kirby Smart validating what he'd said about Jamari Salyer on Tuesday, that he was the most improved offensive lineman thus far in camp, and Salyer was working with those number ones a bit on Saturday. We had a chance to see that with our own eyes. Ultimately, I wouldn't suggest this would give Salyer the edge as a starter when it comes to that position. I think sometimes when it comes to stuff like this, I think that Kirby is mindful of when reporters are out there, and it wouldn't surprise me if some things are done as a hope that it will be noticed, and this is certainly a good opportunity to do that. We don't know what rotations look like when you kind of go back and you don't have the watchful eye of the media looking in, although plenty of high school coaches were there to see what was going on there that day. I mean, I'm not going to choose sides in a Ben Cleveland versus Jamari Salyer competition because I like them both, and I think that Georgia's better for having them both. But that's a very fun and interesting thing to watch for. Derek Hill says Trey Hill will be the next great center. Yeah, Georgia's got a pretty good long list of really good centers. Gilliard was just the latest among those. Ben Jones, David Andrews, and Trey Hill could be the very next one. That's really something to see. Steve Shaffini, how about this prediction from Steve? I love this. I like the good hot takes in the comment section from time to time. Steve says that Jake Fromm's going to go to the Giants. He's going to become the replacement for Eli Manning eventually. Our longtime producer Michael Shalaba was a big Giants fan. I wonder what Michael would think about Jake Fromm as the next Giants quarterback. Giants have had some UGA guys over the years. I think they have 2 right now. Rodney Hampton, who Tim Worley mentioned, he was also a first-round pick of the Giants. Tavares King played for the Giants. I don't know if Tavares is still in the NFL or not. But so the Giants have a little bit of a history with UGA. Derek Tillman mentions Deion Sanders doing the double duty with the Braves and Falcons. I watched that 30 for 30. That was really fun. Quick aside, so I'm 42. So like early 90s is a very, very influential era on me. And, the Falcons are kind of fun in that era. The Braves were obviously a blast. Even Georgia, despite not being, in the SEC championship, things like that, you had Zaire and you had Hurst, you had Hastings. There were some interesting players at Georgia. When you go back and watch a 30 for 30 like that, you realize just how fun the era growing up was. Now, listen, some of the fashion choices back then weren't my favorite, and some of the music that became popular later on probably doesn't speak that great of the 90s, but But that particular era for sports, though, was really, really good. Mark Cochran also got Jake Fromm to the Patriots. So I heard the other day a rumor that the Patriots might be interested in Josh Rosen, the Cardinals quarterback. That felt to me like a leak from Arizona to make, basically say, hey, the Patriots want our quarterback, so y'all better hurry up and get him before the Patriots get him. That felt like an Arizona leak. But we know that Kirby and Belichick got a little bit of a relationship with each other. Maybe Fromm could be the next Tom Brady there in New England. That doesn't seem like a bad thing at all. Bruce Cohen says his favorite Braves player was the former closer Gene Garber. Gene Garber, kind of the sidearm submarine style pitcher. I guess Garber is probably most famous, and some of you guys who are a little older than me can see if you agree or disagree with this. So Pete Rose, at one point in time, was trying to break Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak, and he had a long streak. I forget how long it was. I think it's still the second longest hitting streak, I think. And he came into Atlanta. Braves weren't very good, but the Braves wanted to stop Rose's streak. Now I'm too young to fully remember all this. This is one of those things I've sort of picked up over the years. And then Garber in the end is he's pitching. I think Rose after the game even said it. He's pitching like it's the 7th game of the World Series. And the video is out there of when Garber gets Rose the end. He does celebrate like the Braves had won a big game. This is, I think, like a last-ish place type team for the Braves at the time. But Garber, real big celebration at getting Rose out. So I'm a little too young to know to fully remember that, but I've certainly seen the video over the years and heard the story over the years. That's, I guess, the thing that Garber's probably the most famous for. So I didn't realize this. Phil Rogers. So Georgia plays Vanderbilt this weekend. Is that in Connor? Do you know? Is that in Athens or is that in Nashville? If you don't know, it's fine. Vanderbilt. For those of you that don't follow baseball closely, Vanderbilt is like from a recruiting standpoint, is like the Alabama, Georgia of baseball recruiting. They've had a top 25 class in recruiting, something like 20-something years in a row or something crazy like that. I heard this stat a year ago that they have the longest streak in the country of like top 20 or top 25 recruiting classes. Obviously, a lot of their talent has moved on to Major League Baseball. The Braves have drafted a couple guys out of Vanderbilt over the years. Dansby Swanson, maybe the most famous there. But that is a really, really big series. We heard Ben McDonald on the SEC Network the other day say when he looks at the SEC East, the two top teams in his mind are clearly Georgia and Vanderbilt. Is that in Foley or is that in Nashville?
That is in Foley this weekend. Georgia goes to Clemson on Tuesday, and then they have a 3-game set against Vanderbilt over the weekend. Vanderbilt number 5 in D1 baseball rankings this week. Georgia number 4.
Which
D1
poll do you care the most about, D1 or Baseball America?
Whichever has Georgia the highest. That way I can use it for better content. Baseball America has Georgia at number 6.
Okay, so one of those is not thought of as the industry standard over the other?
I don't think with baseball there is an industry standard, unfortunately.
So, obviously, if you were paid attention last week, Georgia did not play well at Georgia Tech. This is one of those things where, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm, the Golden Spikes winner myself when it comes to talking about college baseball. But the middle of the week stuff does not matter all that much. I guess there's to a certain extent you care about RPI and things like that in baseball, like you care about basketball. But Georgia's going to do its bidding on the weekends. So it played really, really bad at Tech last week. It was miserable weather, bad raining stuff. You do different starting pitchers in the middle of the week, and so it's almost like a just completely different team. So middle of the week against Clemson, that's somewhat interesting. But Vanderbilt over the weekend in Athens is going to be really, really fun. They were completely sold out for all 3 games against LSU. LSU also has a history of baseball fans that travel a bit. You think they get sellouts for Vanderbilt over the weekend, Connor?
I think if the weather cooperates, which right now it's a little iffy, but if the weather's good, I can certainly see that, especially for Friday's game.
With Hancock on the mound?
Hancock pitching, maybe the best pitcher in America. He's having a really great start to the season, so I could certainly see that being the case.
Boy, would it be nice if on Saturday, I'm sure there'll be Georgia practice again on Saturday, have a little coinciding going on where you can go to Georgia practice, then roll right into a Georgia baseball game? That'd be good times.
Saturday game set for 2:00, so
it doesn't feel like the best time. It doesn't feel like the best time for that game to be taking place.
No, I disagree. I mean, well,
you missed part of it anyway.
I mean, well,
y'all don't care about this part, but
the Georgia scrimmage would probably be 11-2, or practice that day is 11-2. They might not give media access that Saturday, so you can go watch practice and then head on over to Foley Field.
Boy, that's gonna be a good time. Listen, I'm all about this. We are absolutely asking folks to slide to the middle when it comes to the Diamond Dogs bandwagon. I do think they do have some injury concerns. Against a team like Vanderbilt, you may see some of that show up, but nonetheless, that's the thing. By the way, speaking of fashion choices, Philip Jordan Wells said BA would have had a cross colors red and black outfit back then. Yeah, when it comes to like early 90s stuff, I had all the early 90s stuff you might imagine. Y'all remember like Tommy Hilfiger was huge back. And there was a lot of like, it's blue here, but it's like white here, and then it's like, Madras down here. There was a lot of that kind of stuff going on. I had a lot of patched together clothes back then. Also, everything back then was very, very baggy. Now, at this stage of my life, I need clothes to be as baggy as they can be. But back then, the early 90s stuff was very, very baggy. Although, if you really walk around any shopping mall these days or place where people are out in public, it's amazing how much like early 90s stuff is back. Like the box haircuts are back now, and that was a very big staple back in the early 90s. A lot of those like stone-washed, very baggy jeans, they're all back now. So in a lot of ways, if you want to know what early 90s fashion was like, just walk around right now. Like early 90s stuff is very much.
Dan Mullen was wearing those baggy pants a few weeks ago.
He
got roasted on Twitter for it.
He was.
It's like T-Mac at the 2003 NBA draft.
Yeah, Mullen showing off some very pleated, very, very baggy pants. You got to get the tapered leg with your pants. If you're going to wear dress pants, you got to get them a little bit tapered down there at the bottom. All right, Ben Gunnels agrees with me, by the way, that the Josh Rosen rumor was very suspicious. Ben, I'm glad that you kind of got that the same way that I did. Something about that didn't quite register with me on that. Love seeing all these old Braves names, by the way. This is really fun. This is really fun. By the way, Jeff Sintel's in the comment section right now. Y'all say hello to him. Phil Rogers says Dogs need to fill up Foley this weekend. They do need to fill it up, but they need to fill it up minus at least 2 seats so I can find a way to get in there. Y'all don't fill it up until I've had a chance to get some tickets, because I would love to be there for that. Mike Mazzell says Virginia wins the basketball championship. I guess we need to update. We don't have to do it today. We got a whole week to do it. We need to update the standings going into the Final Four.
Correct.
Because we did have the Final Four teams punched on Saturday and Sunday, so that means that we have new updates in our DawgNation Daily Bracket Contest. I had North Carolina cutting down the net, so I'm assuming that if I wasn't already mathematically eliminated, I'm pretty sure I was eliminated. I did have Michigan State beating Duke, so at least I saved some face.
I also had Michigan State in my Final Four. If Virginia wins, I would come in 5th place.
Do you think we had probably 1,000 entrants? Is there any chance we have somebody that has all 4 Final Four teams?
I can go through and check, but I'm not certain.
Because it's not like there's like an 11 seed or anything like that this year. I mean, Auburn had won the SEC tournament. It's not, an unbelievable thing to think that somebody might have picked them. Texas Tech may actually be the one that got probably picked the fewest. By the way, my computer just died, so that pretty much means RS Andrews' cooldown has come to an end because my laptop just completely died on us here.
Can I make 2 comments?
Oh, please.
So, you were talking about can a running back ever win a Heisman Trophy? Do you know that a running back has won a Heisman Trophy more recently than Duke or Kentucky has been to a Final Four?
That's really interesting. That's a great stat. It's a great stat.
We talked about this. The little Jeff Sintel wrote a great story on Kendall Milton over the weekend. I'm worried about potentially a John Emery Jr. all over again, and I'm worried about you getting hurt, BA.
Well, I will get hurt. I mean, I think it's a lot easier to pull a player from California than to do Louisiana.
I mean, Georgia pulled the player from Louisiana last class, and I know, LSU fans will say we didn't want Micaiah Tongue, whatever. He's a top 200 player. California, Georgia doesn't pull a lot of guys out of that state.
Okay, so we'll obviously talk a lot about this tomorrow with Jeff and then on Wednesday for Before the Hedges. I'm of the belief, and maybe I'm going to get even more hurt this time around than last time. I thought it was suspicious with John Emery Jr. from the word go. Like you said, I think Micaiah Tongue's a really good player, but prioritizing a running back for LSU in its own state is just a very, very different thing. They clearly wanted Davis and Emery. They ended up getting them both. I think that's is the word provincial? Is it the word I'm looking for? Mm-hmm. It's a very provincial area. They were not going to without a fight, let Emery get out of there. I just think it's much easier to go to California and get a player, especially for a guy who, I mean, I think you've seen the online chatter about Oklahoma. He's recently taken a visit to Ohio State. I mean, I get the impression that wherever Milton goes, it's likely going to be a road trip or there's going to be some distance with him wherever he goes. So for me, this is a battle between which long plane flight does he want to take, the one to Atlanta, the one to wherever. What specifically from the weekend do you come away feeling the most anxious about Milton regarding?
Just big on follow the visits. And I know he's talked a lot about taking visits, and I know his dad has talked a lot about taking visits. I want, before we start getting too far down the line with Milton, I want him to at least visit Georgia. I want him to see him visit Georgia multiple times before believing that he's seriously going to consider coming. Because even a guy like Zachary Evans, who we don't talk a lot about on here, he's actually been to Georgia. And Milton, because of the distance and everything that comes with that, he still hasn't been to Georgia yet.
So here's what I don't know, and I mean I don't know this. I don't know how many visits is enough visits for a guy that lives in California. And your point's going to be, well, BA, that's why I think it's tricky for Georgia to get him. And you may be right about that. But, we saw Helinski go to South Carolina on unofficial visits over and over and over again, the quarterback they just signed there a year ago. My understanding is that there was certainly financial opportunities to keep doing that as much as you possibly wanted to. I don't know Kendall Milton's situation. His parents may be billionaires. They may not be. I don't know. But I do know how expensive it is to go from Georgia to California.
Yep.
So my assumption is that whatever the normal number of visits are, my assumption is that in Milton's case, it's probably going to be lessened. Do you happen to know? Because I don't. Has he visited a place like Oklahoma a lot more? It is closer. There's, I don't have to be tedious. There are crystal balls out there, putting him to the Sooners.
It's not so much that I know exactly how often he's been to Oklahoma. I know he's on Twitter, I believe, said he's going to Ohio State coming weekend. It's not so much how much he comes to visit. I just want him, before we start taking this stuff seriously, to actually visit Georgia.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point, and I guess I would prefer it not be one of these barnstorming visits, where it's like me and like 9 guys I go to high school with, and I'm going to Alabama and Georgia and Clemson and Tennessee and wherever else. I mean, that to me does not count as a full visit, so I kind of understand where you're going, but I've done this with people on Twitter a couple of times. My confidence level in Georgia pulling Kendall Milton out of California is way higher than my confidence level about Georgia pulling John Emery Jr. out of Louisiana. I actually think that Georgia made a bit of a tactical error in going after Emery, given the fact they could have been
going after Trey Sanders harder.
Yeah, whispering sweet nothings in Trey Sanders' ear, and there's a chance that he may have just been more willing to buy it because he was at IMG and everybody there goes somewhere else.
Right. Certainly a very fair point. I think, and Jeff is mentioning, in our comment section right now, it might just take one, and I could.
Yeah. By the way, I apologize. My this hasn't happened before, but my laptop completely died, so we're about to get off the air. So I'm sorry for not reading comments.
And DeAndre Swift, someone came from Pennsylvania. He only needed 2. Before I personally, and I understand where you were coming from, and I understand where Jeff is coming from, and Justin Robinson, actively talking about recruiting him is a story, and it merits that.
I do.
Before I want to seriously consider him as a part of the class, where you might consider, Arik Gilbert, some of the other big name targets out there, even Brian Brzee coming from Maryland, he's visited Georgia multiple times.
Yeah.
I just want to see him visit Georgia once.
I think that's a very fair point to bring up, that until the visit happens, you have to always temper expectations. Here is my most positive, rainbow and sunshine, pie in the sky appraisal of the situation. And I'm not telling you this is what is true. I'm saying this is what could possibly be true. And if you want the most optimistic appraisal, it is this. It could be that Milton has just made a very calculated business decision. Listen to Milton speak. He sounds mature. Now, not everybody who sounds mature is mature, but he sounds mature. Seeing some of the social media activity from his dad over the last few days. He's clearly a thoughtful guy. He's clearly a guy that is going into this recruiting process with his eyes wide open. These are not rookies when it comes to handling media, handling attention, handling the college decision process. They are savvy. It's a savvy family. I'm hopeful that he's just made a business decision. Georgia's got 1 million running backs in the pros. They've got sequoia trees along the offensive line. I want to play in the NFL. This is a place that's going to get me in the NFL. My hopeful, optimistic, most positive assessment is that he has picked out Georgia the same way other people pick out a Tesla. He searched it online and said, hey, based on these features and benefits, this is the right place to be. Now ship it to me and I'll take it for a test drive. That's kind of what I'm hoping is going on here. Although for every other recruit in America, the follow the visits mantra I do think is really, really important.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying it needs to be even multiple visits. My hesitation is we want to see him at, if he comes to G-Day, I know they're going to be, everyone and their grandmother's going to be at G-Day. I think that's going to be a very good sign. I think if you were putting together a list of guys, if you have a Georgia recruiting wish list, I think if you were to put together a top 5 list of guys you wanted to see at G-Day in terms of, potentially meaning good things for Georgia down the line, I think he's in that top 5.
And I tell you what's going to be fun for fans. You're going to want to get your binoculars out before the game for this. Look and see who coaches are talking to, because on a day when everybody's there, there's the velvet ropes on the other side of the velvet ropes. It's not just being there. It's Tyreek Stevenson standing on the field watching drills and getting some one-on-one attention from I forget which coach. It's a guy like Kendall Milton potentially, getting a lot of that one-on-one time with whether it be Del McGee, Kirby himself, whomever. Watch to see with the binoculars who's really getting that attention. That's going to be one of the most fun parts of G-Day. G-Day is already going to be just an insane day because there's going to be a lot on the field we're trying to see. Jermaine Burton's already told us that's his commitment date. It's going to be, we'll have 25 stories at DawgNation.com that day. I mean, it's just almost a given that it's going to be, just through the roof. But something else worth paying attention to is on a day and where everybody from a recruit standpoint wants to be in Athens, who does Georgia give that extra time to? It's one of the reasons why it's hard to sign an elite class, because when you show love to somebody else does not feel that love. And Kirby's had to manage that now for a couple classes. He's done a good job with it, but he's going to be juggling a bunch of knives and bowling balls on April the 20th, which is going to be fun to watch.
April 20th is a sneakily very, very important day behind the scenes now, with Georgia sort of having that day to itself where it's not, competing. Last year it was on the same day as the Alabama spring game.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to compete with Clemson, Alabama, the other big fishermen out there that are fishing for big recruits. It has that day to itself, and it has a chance to make a real impression.
You want to read a comment or give a final thought? We got to get off the air. I apologize. I haven't read more comments during this portion. Anything you want to do to kind of wrap us up here?
Give me a second. Let's try and end with a good Braves memory.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite Braves memory?
Yeah, I do. Although one of the things that's funny for me is I thought about this a couple of years ago. And a lot of the Georgia football stuff for me is the same way, especially for games that weren't in Athens, because when I was a kid, I didn't go to road games. How many of my favorite sports memories that I did not see because I was not looking at the screen? For instance, when Sid Bream slid at home on the Francisco Cabrera base hit to win the 92 NLCS in walk-off fashion, I was not watching that live because I remember this vividly. I used to have a black and white TV in my room. Now, in 1992, not that many people had black and white TVs. I'm not that old. I just happened to have one from Curtis Mathis in Gainesville. So I had that TV. So in my bedroom, I'm laying down on my bed, and I'm covering up my eyes like this. Back then, I'm hopefully not that superstitious now, but I was incredibly superstitious back then, that somehow not watching the game was going to make it more likely to turn out the way that I wanted it to. So my memory of the 92 NLCS is hearing, I guess it would have been obviously McCarver on the color analysis. Would that have been Sean McDonough doing play-by-play?
Yep.
Was it Sean McDonough?
Sean McDonough.
Okay, yeah. So my memory is hearing him with that call. And every time that I've seen the replay of that, my only visual memory of that was not from seeing it live. It was seeing it replayed over and over again because I was not watching it. I didn't feel like I could watch it. I was too nervous to watch it. I was a huge Braves fan growing up, much the same way I'm a big Georgia fan. The Braves and Georgia have always been my two teams. I like the Hawks, I like the Falcons, but my two teams have always been, Braves, and obviously Georgia's at another level compared to anything. But not watching it live. And so I have a lot of memories like that where I was, just too nervous to watch. On the 91 World Series stuff, kind of the same way. A lot of it, the Georgia stuff, the same way. Probably not watching, for instance, 93 Georgia-Florida down there at the end, and that one doesn't work out. But I have this thing where I would kind of close my eyes and turn away. I'm in high school. I'm not 4 years old. I'm in high school, still kind of doing that kind of stuff. But that's kind of my memory of that. And it's one of the reasons why I will always be a big baseball fan is because of the tension that develops over the course of a big game. Maybe basketball gives you that. NCAA tournament was this weekend. I know if you're an Auburn fan, you were living and dying with every shot. But baseball gives you that white-knuckled, everything really, really matters. And I do love that feeling. It's painful and, certainly irritating when your team doesn't work out. The Braves gave me a lot of that kind of stuff growing up, so I will be a devoted fan forever because of that. But that's my thing of putting my head into my pillow and not being able to watch and listening for the sound of what ended up being the hit. And I will tell you this with the 92 NLCS, too, and then we'll get out of here, I promise. That series could have gone very, very differently. That game could have gone very differently had Leland, the Pirates manager, brought Tim Wakefield in on short rest out of the bullpen. I did not want him to do that. I think it was Stan Belinda that was on the mound for Pittsburgh that night. I'm talking about at the end of the game. I'm really, really glad that Leland didn't bring Wakefield out of the bullpen. That could have been trouble for the Braves.
Before we go, it's going to be my final comment. It comes via Jeff Santel. He heard the top 5 wish list for guys you want at G-Day, and he has given a little taste of something you might expect. This is a wish list.
Look at Jeff giving content inside of content.
This might be something we delve deeper into on Before the Hedges on.
So this is a wish list for who you would want to be there.
Yes.
So Milton's obviously on my list.
At 1.
Lloyd's actually on my list too, probably.
He has Lloyd at number 4.
Okay. I guess I got to say Jermaine Burton since he's committing on April 20th.
That is number 2.
Brzee for sure.
Brzee is not on that top 5.
I guess that means that Jeff's already got him in orange and purple. Thanks, Jeff. We're trying to have a good show. We're trying to have fun. We're trying to have a good time.
Number 3, I think it's only a nice recovery. Darnell Washington.
All right,
Vegas,
I'll take that.
tight end.
I'll take that.
And his number 5 and 5B is Akevius Walker at a. I'm not even gonna know how to pronounce it.
I think it's Sly County.
Sly County, and then Mikhail Sherman out of DC.
Okay, so here's my thing about Walker and Gilbert and guys like that. Because I'm greedy, I can't have in-state guys on my top 5 wish list.
Right, because you think they'd be able to come back multiple times. That's why, like, Miles Murphy is someone who you would think would want to be on there, but because just the proximity, he can visit it a little bit more often.
Yeah, Murphy's a little bit different in the fact that, as it seems right now, this is one of those deals where, like, if the phone's not ringing, it's me. In the case of Miles Murphy, that may be the case right now. But when it comes to in-state guys, I hope they're going to be there. It's these out-of-state guys, Sherman included, who you'd like to get there. No Rakeem Jarrett for Jeff on that list. Was there some more chatter about him in Tennessee again?
I've seen a lot of chatter about him in Tennessee.
Boy, listen.
Look, if he wants to go there and catch 30 balls a year and have 30 more thrown over his head, go ahead.
If I find out that Jim Chaney is telling him about how they're going to be using him in this offense, I will press charges. That is fraud. That is fraud. All right, we got to go. Fun stuff. Thank you all for your Braves memories. We'll draw some winners out and announce those tomorrow, Thursday and Sunday. We'll also be busy tomorrow back on the show again. Jeff will be here. We'll do recruiting with him, but we'll do some of the stuff from practice on Saturday. I just didn't have time to get it all in. I do hope you enjoyed Tim Worley today. It was really good stuff, and nice to get perspective from Pete Fiutak as well. So y'all have a great day. If you're on spring break, hope you enjoy it. We'll see you tomorrow back here for DawgNation Daily once again.